Hello everyone, welcome to EduTap. I'm Surbhi and this is Perspective 360 Degree, your one-stop solution for current affairs, descriptive writing and answer writing evaluation. Now, I see a lot of you who have joined Perspective 360 Degree and are benefiting out of it. For those of you who do not know what this initiative is, basically we know that descriptive writing portion is something that you find very tough while preparing for regulatory bodies examination or other examinations as well, especially when these questions are from current affairs. It becomes tougher to handle in the descriptive portion. So Perspective 360 Degree is aimed at preparing you for current affairs from descriptive writing point of view. Every day, not every day, on Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m. we have live-to-live sessions like these, which are free of cost on YouTube. And what happens during these sessions is that I take the question answer approach. We see a topic that is in news. We frame a question out of it for descriptive writing portion that appears in phase 2, and we write an answer to it. While writing the answer, we understand the topic, we write introduction, main body, conclusion, and hence we get prepared for both the things at once. We get topic clarity and we also write an answer to it. After this, what happens is you can post your answer in the YouTube comment section under this video or whatever topic you watch. But the timeline for that is 48 hours, during which our team provides you free of cost evaluation for the answer that you post. So before going further, let me know if the video is clear to you, if my screen is clear to you. And Ronak, the advices and the guidance, it can be booked at this number 8146207241. Today we'll be studying the topic itself. All right, and if the audio video is clear, all of you kindly let me know in the chat section, and let's proceed. Conference of Parties COP28, the UAE consensus. COP28 or Conference of Parties 28 was held in Dubai, UAE. So now, what was it about? What was it about? Is it a climate protection pact or a trade pact? There have been a lot of happy news regarding COP28. Also, there have been a lot of discussions, deliberations, and concerns associated with it. There was a time when it was also said, or it had been in news, that India will not be signing the declaration of Conference of Parties 28. So basically, when this conference ends every year, there is a draft document that is brought out, which all the parties, all the countries have to sign to show their approval to all the discussions that have happened. So in news, let's look at some headlines which will give you a little more clarity about the topic. Why is it in news? So from COP28 to a bad trade pact, what is it about? Business line. COP28, this is from Indian Express. What were the most important decisions and where they fell short? If you can find out this article from Indian Express, then this covers most of the details that we'll be discussing today, with some additions. So then there is zoomed out COP28. Why linking food systems and climate change is crucial in today's context. So many of you are preparing for NABARD as well. So why do you think linking climate change and food systems, it is crucial in today's context? So we've done, agriculture and climate change. We have discussed previously on Perspective 360 Degree. So all the knowledge that we have imbibed till today in the course of our 41 lectures that have been completed, we'll be using to write answers further. Then COP28, this is from the Hindu. Summit calls for transition away from fossil fuels. So are we banning fossil fuels globally? What is it about? So here I have the snapshot or the screenshot of your syllabus for those of you preparing for RBI Grade B. Under Economic and Social Issues, ESI, there is a topic called Sustainable Development and Environmental Issues. And if you ask me what is the most important topic here, every year it is going to be Conference of Parties and the associated funds, mechanisms launched. So this year it is Conference of Parties 28. So kindly, study this thoroughly, understand whatever comes through. For NABARD Grade A, you have the topic called Health and Environment in your syllabus. And for SEBI Grade A and all other exams, including RBI and NABARD, you can be asked a full-fledged essay in your English writing skills from this portion of current affairs. Now, first of all, let's begin with understanding an expected question. See, expected question is not going to be very, very tough. they might ask you the highlights of COP28, or if they want to make the question very tough, they might ask you one of the features or one of the funds, let's say, that were launched at COP28, and they might ask you the concerns associated. They might also ask you that have these conference of parties been successful in curbing climate change, in controlling climate change. So do you know that 2023, it was one of the hottest years in like all centuries that we have seen, in in all these decades, in centuries that we have seen. So 2023 was the hottest year. Still we are it's been so long since 1992 that we have been putting so many efforts to control climate change, to control global warming, but still every year we see very harsh winters and very hot summers, and we see all the disasters coming out of climate change: abrupt monsoons, abrupt rains, floods in certain areas, landslides. So why and tropical cyclones, which are increasing, which used to happen once in few years, now we see multiple in 1 year only, as you've seen recently on the Tamil Nadu coast. So now what does Conference of Parties do? This will be understood. First of all, let's understand it through a question. Let's give a question to ourselves, only then we'll be able to frame an answer and we'll be able to understand what we have to write. So write the major highlights of steps taken at COP28 under the UNFCCC. Also discuss the concerns associated with the outcomes. Answer for 600 words for 15 marks. Appears very, very simple, but if you have not studied COP28, which we will be doing right now, then this can be tough in the examination. This is the answer blueprint that I'm sharing with you. Kindly divide your answer into 3 parts, that is introduction, main body, and conclusion. It makes your answer easier for a human being or for an artificial intelligence tool to understand, and whether your answer is checked by a human being or by the computer itself, you will definitely get more marks when you follow this answer blueprint, when you divide your answer into subparts. So if I have to talk about subparts, in the introduction, we'll be writing about general details of COP28. Then we'll be talking about major highlights, or we call them accomplishments. The second part talks about concerns, so that will be our body part 2. In the conclusion, we'll summarize all that we have discussed in the first 3 parts, and we'll also give a way forward, since here we've talked little negatively, or we've given some concerns associated with Conference of Parties. Now the question comes, what is Conference of Parties? So see, in 1992, what happened? Probably many of you were not even born during that time, so I have this timeline for you. Don't worry, I'll give you that hand holding to make you understand this. So in 1992, 3 conventions were made open for signature. Till that time, we had realized that climate change is something the entire globe is impacted by. It's not that the poor nations will be suffering and the rich ones will be left out. No. Earth is our only home, and we need to protect it. We need to preserve the resources. The living temperatures have to be maintained on Earth, and we cannot be using Earth without thinking about the future outcomes of it. We cannot overuse or overexploit any of the resources. So one of the main concerns was the usage of fossil fuels, the running of industries, the running of vehicles which burn fossil fuels, and they produce a lot of carbon dioxide and other gases which lead to warmer temperatures on Earth, or in other words, they cause global warming. So in 1992, most of the understanding had been developed, and 3 conventions had been made open for countries to read, to sign, and to ratify. That if you agree with all these conventions, the rules that we have given, the goals that we have highlighted, please sign it. So one of the conventions was UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So climate change is the talk of the town, and we are going to focus this discussion on climate change. The other one was about biodiversity. That was UNCBD, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. And the third one was UNCCD, that is protecting the land from desertification. Don't overuse the land so much that it converts itself into a desert and then you cannot produce food for yourself. So the third one was United Nations Convention to combat desertification. So these 3 were made open to signature. And if I talk about COP28, COP28 is basically a meeting of countries that is held. Conference of Parties is a meeting of countries that is held every year Which parties, which countries? The countries who signed UNFCCC or United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So every year when these countries meet, they decide the goals for the future. They also tell about what good have we done in the past year to control climate change. Let's say India is shifting to hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles. We have so many solar panels around which we did not have 10 years earlier. So yes, India does talk about all these, and we share all our good practices and we set up goals for future. So now if I have to tell you what is a COP, Conference of Parties, they are gatherings held within the framework of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was a multinational treaty established in 1992. And the COPs basically serve as official sessions of all these parties. Parties means countries. And during these sessions, what do participating countries do? They actually decide their primary goal is to restrict global warming to approximately 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Pre-industrial levels and restricting global warming. What were pre-industrial levels? Before you have industrial revolution, before you had industries and the industrial revolution, that time Earth was very less polluted. Global warming was not a reality during those days. So during those days, the temperatures of the Earth, they were much better, they were colder, they were good for survival for plants, animals and human beings. So now we have realized, now we are using fossil fuels so much, we have so many industries all around the world. So yes, global warming will occur, but can we have an upper limit of global warming? Yes, we have kept an ambitious target for ourselves that, let's say, in pre-industrial levels the temperatures were here at this point A. So now we know that the temperatures will definitely rise because of the global warming activities caused by human beings, the greenhouse gases that we have released. So we know that global warming will occur and the present temperature or the future temperature will be more than A. But can we restrict it to B? Yes, we can restrict. And what is this B? 1.5 degrees Celsius. If we go above 1.5, this is the difference should be 1.5 degrees Celsius only. If we go beyond this, that means survival of many species on Earth will become very, very tough, and that is why we say that we have to restrict it. So COPs, they are the main decision making body of the UNFCCC, and to keep the temperatures, the global warming between this range from pre-industrial levels, that is why we are taking so many efforts. We are reducing the usage of fossil fuels, and let's see what COP28 has done to maintain this target and to maintain human life, or let's say life on planet Earth for longer time. So here are timeline of climate change conferences or COP. So your COP1 was held in Berlin in 1995, and in 2022 we had COP27, which was held in Sharm el Sheikh. The most important one here is COP21. The first importance here is this COP of 1997, in which Kyoto Protocol was launched, and here it was decided that we need to control the emissions of greenhouse gases. In 2015, it was Conference of Parties 21, which was held in Paris. And kindly remember both of these, even if you cannot remember anything else. So in Paris, it was decided that let's restrict the global warming levels up to 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, so A, B, C. B was having a difference of 1.5 degrees Celsius and the C is having a difference of 2 degrees Celsius. So in Paris, it was decided in 2015 that if we cannot restrict it to 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels, let's restrict it to at least 2 degrees Celsius. But many a times, International Planet on Climate Change has said that if you want to lead a good life, lead a healthy life on Earth, if you want all the species to exist, then this B should be your target. Don't go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase. So now let's talk about COP28. Let's start with the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Then let's explain where was COP28 held. It was held in Dubai. Let's write about it. Who participated? 197 countries have signed United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So UNFCCC, all the members, they participated. Did the prime ministers and presidents participate? Not all of them. Many a times your Minister of Environment goes there and participates. Many a times your bureaucrats go there even if a minister doesn't go there. Other NGOs, other trustees, they are also allowed to participate who have a role in climate change negotiations. So talking about introduction, creating a path to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. That is our target, that by 2050 we have to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. That means if we are releasing 10 units of greenhouse gases in the environment by, let's say, driving a car or running an industry, then these 10 units should be absorbed in the environment also. They should not be adding to the environment and hence leading to more and more global warming. Otherwise, heating of Earth will never stop. So net zero is our target, which has to be achieved by 2050. Right now we are around 2023, and is humanity's best shot at keeping global temperatures from rising beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of century, according to scientific assessments by IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has given you this 1.5 degrees Celsius knowledge that don't go beyond this temperature. Now talking about COP28, so this has given us a background that what are we talking about? We are talking about curbing greenhouse gases emissions. We are talking about controlling climate change. So this has given us a background, and let's now bring to the present. Let's talk about COP28. So it took place in Dubai, UAE, which had representatives from 197 countries. What were these representatives? Activist groups, indigenous groups, big and small business, consultancies, traders, media, representatives. Others were also there, for example, ministers and bureaucrats. Apart from these people were there. Why are we mentioning these? Because it is a very democratic meeting that is held every year, and everybody participates in climate change negotiations. There are some capitalistic groups, businessmen, who operate on fossil fuels, so obviously they don't want strict measures at COP28, so they go and attend those meetings so that many restrictions are not laid on them. On the other hand, there are environmental protection activists, for example, Greta Thunberg. So they participate because they want more ambitious targets and more things operating to prevent climate change. Then the conference, what happened in the conference? Now we are giving it a brief summary or the result that it released. It yielded a mix of positive outcomes and disappointments, making a substantial step forward since the Paris Agreement, which was held in 2015. And we are taking forward the goals of Paris Agreement. That is the latest one. That is the last one whose goals have still to be implemented. And this is the most strict one. If Paris Agreement gets implemented, then probably we'll be able to prevent global warming from happening. Now moving on to the let's delve deeper section, and before taking any doubts, let me just explain you the accomplishments and the concerns. So we'll take doubts towards the end of this discussion today. Talking about accomplishments, there are 7 accomplishments that I will be explaining you. The first one is fossil fuel phase out. So obviously to prevent global warming from happening, you need to cut down on the usage of fossil fuels, because fossil fuels, what do? When they burn, they release greenhouse gases. Now, surprisingly, till date, since 2015, that is COP21 of Paris, till date, conversations specifically about fossil fuels were not held. So they have been held this time only, that is in COP28. So can you mention this as a separate point? Definitely do that. But the catch here is no way to cut down on fossil fuels has been mentioned, and no deadline has been mentioned. They've just said that we need to achieve net zero by 2050, and we'll call this the Dubai Consensus. And what is the Dubai Consensus about? Transitioning away from fossil fuels. They have used the word transitioning away. That means full cut down is not been asked. They have asked transition away, that if you're about to buy a car, transition away from fossil fuels, buy a hybrid car instead, buy a electric vehicle instead. So that is a vague term. It is not legally binding. It has no target date set. It has no method how to implement it. These are the examples I am giving you. But does the Dubai Consensus or the COP28 draft, does it give you anything? No, it hasn't. So our first concern, that is our body part 2, will come from here. The second one that they have given us is tripling of renewable energy. So if you are using 10 units of electricity today, which is produced from renewable energy sources, let's say solar power, then triple it by when? That we'll see. Triple it, that means use 30 units of electricity which is coming from renewable energy. All right. So COP28 it calls upon countries to contribute to tripling of global installed capacity of renewable energy. Now the catch here is this tripling of renewable energy, that is not a target for India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, USA. No, it is not for one single country. It is for the entire world. That by 2030 we should be able to triple renewable energy, or and that is also installed capacity, means even if a solar power plant is there, even if it is not producing electricity or electricity produced by it is not used, still it will be counting as renewable energy installed capacity, means not produced capacity but installed capacity. By 2030 it has to be tripled, but tripled by whom, for whom, that has not been mentioned. So the target talks about tripling of renewable energy for the entire world. Now it talks about phase down of coal. Now you would say that, ma'am, we talked about the first headline, which is fossil fuel phase out. So what do we mean by phase out of coal? Because coal is also a fossil fuel. Yes, I understand fossil fuels include coal, and they definitely include coal, but coal has been mentioned separately at COP28, and that is a big concern to countries like India, China, Nepal, which, in India we have a lot of coal reserves. Our thermal power plants, they run on coal. So if anything is messed up around coal, that means the thermal power plants, that is, probably sending the electricity that you're currently watching this video on, that might be termed as inoperable. But are they making those thermal power plants running on coal inoperable? No. In 2022 in COP27, they said that now whatever new thermal power plants will be created or established, they need to have a carbon capture storage system in them. And if they have carbon capture storage system in them, that makes it very expensive to have a thermal power plant that is running on coal. So India is very much concerned around this. India is working in other fields. We are moving towards electric vehicles. We are producing our electricity through solar power plants. We are leading International Solar Alliance. But our thermal power plants are also required in the country. More than 60% of the electricity in your country is generated with the help of coal. So yes, that's not good for the environment, but economically India is not a very rich nation, so that to be able to switch to other sources of energy all of a sudden. So despite being a fossil fuel, just like oil or natural gas, coal has received a separate mention in the agreement. Now talking about methane emission cuts. Methane, you've heard about carbon dioxide, that it is a greenhouse gas. Methane is even a more potent and a more bigger nuance creating greenhouse gas. It is more global warming causing gas, that we call it. And where is methane released? Methane is released by vehicles or by burning fossil fuels. Where it is released? Methane is released by agriculture and livestock. The intestines of your livestock, let's say cows, or let's say livestock animals, they release a lot of methane. So anybody who's carrying out, who has a, let's say, dairy farm, you can very well expect that there is a lot of methane that is coming out of there. Secondly, rice plantation. When you plant rice actually releases a lot of methane. So any country that depends on agriculture and livestock, if that country is asked to cut down on methane, then that is a problem for that country. So methane emission cuts have been talked about here, and India has a big concern here. So the agreement talks about accelerating and substantially reducing non-carbon dioxide emissions globally, which actually cause global warming, including in particular methane emissions by 2030. So methane, what is it? Most widespread greenhouse gas apart from carbon dioxide, and it accounts for 25% of all emissions, and it is about 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide in causing global warming. Now the fifth one here is loss and damage fund. Now we talk about industries releasing a lot of pollutants, a lot of greenhouse gases, but are these industries located in smaller countries or in poor countries? No, Where are these big industries located which cause so much pollution? They are located in developed nations or countries like India, China, especially USA, especially Europe. So these are the countries which are producing most of the emissions. But when climate change happens, when floods occur, tsunamis occur, when tropical cyclones occur, there are very small island nations which are spread throughout the earth. These nations, their land reduces and they actually inundate with time. So there are poor nations who are at the receiving end of climate change, to which they did not contribute at all. They're still leading their ancient lives. They have no industries there. Secondly, there are island nations which are at the risk of drowning in the sea. So loss and damage fund has been set up for them, for poor and vulnerable countries which are vulnerable to climate change. And this was the most important outcome. This was talked about at COP27, that is last year in 2022. This year it has been set up at the amount of $800 million. So that is a good amount. But the contributions here have been made voluntary. So no country is actually compulsory contributing towards this fund. No compulsion is there. So countries, they're not bound to contribute to this fund. But this has been set up. So that's a good news, to provide financial help to countries trying to recover from climate-induced disasters, for example, island nations. Then there is global goal on adaptation. Now mitigation and let's say financial help to countries who are mitigation and recovery. This is the place where money is going. But there are countries like India which have a coastal boundary and which depend on agriculture a lot, and because of the erratic monsoon, because of the pest attacks, because of increasing temperatures, we are not able to adapt to the new climates of the times, and India does not have that much amount of money to be able to adapt all of a sudden. So countries like India, which are at the receiving end of climate change, we are also demanding this adaptation money for adaptation, and it's called the global goal for adaptation. Basically here some financial help is required in the form of, and this $100 billion, it was pledged by all these industries, all these countries which led the industrial revolution. They said that by 2020 we'll give you $100 billion to be able to adapt to climate change, but they did not do it. So India put a big question mark here. Then the seventh one here is global climate stocktake. Stocktake means how much efforts the countries have put. So global climate stocktake, it was one of the main agenda of COP28. They said that countries have to give their emission reduction targets. That means how much emissions will India reduce by 2030, or how much emissions will USA reduce by this particular deadline. So by 2025, countries have to give their updated targets. So this has been set up, global climate stocktake. So this can guide our future climate action based on what are the individual targets of countries. Now talking about concerns are very easy. First of all, no time schedules and targets have been set up for phase out of fossil fuels. No binding ambitious climate action was launched. This is not binding, no climate action that was binding or legally binding was launched here. The renewable energy pledge, which talks about triple the or make the installed capacity of renewable energy 3 times. Where to install it, how to install it, that has not been mentioned. So how this tripling would be ensured, that is not given to us. It also failed to resolve the impasse over proposal that no new coal-fired power plants would be opened without an inbuilt carbon capture and storage facility. This I have explained to you, that here India is the main contender and this issue of phasing out coal has not been resolved. Then the mandate to cut emissions of methane. This is again questionable for India, and this has not been solved here. And COP28, it has failed to set up a financial mechanism to finance global goal on adaptation, to which India has a great concern. Obviously, since we are staying in India, so we'll talk about most of the concerns which are raised by India and which impact us. So the developed countries, they had promised this $100 billion climate finance per year by 2020, but they did not even do it for 1 year. Just few $1,000s were given and $100 billion climate finance was not given. Basically, common but differentiated responsibilities, or the developed countries said that yes, we had our industrial revolution, we increased the temperature of globe to have this, high per capita income, have this developed country tag, and now countries like India are facing the brunt of it, island countries are facing the brunt of it, so let's give you money for adaptation and in the loss and damage fund. But they did not give that money, and so again this question was not even brought up, it was not even talked about. That's why there was news floating that India might not sign the agreement at COP28. So loss and damage funding has been made voluntary, this I've already told you. Now if you have to summarize this and give a conclusion, the first thing you can do is take a balanced stand that yes, good things were there, some important outcomes were launched, talk about 1, 2 or 3, just give comma if you have like word limit left. Otherwise just say that yes, the COP28 climate meeting, it delivered some important outcomes. On the other hand, many countries are actually terming the results as underachievements. That what about immediate climate change that is happening? This year, 2023, it saw erratic monsoon. In the initial days, we had floods in most parts of North India, and especially the havoc that was there in Himachal Pradesh. We all know that, we all remember that. So this is happening because of immediate impacts of climate change, and it has nowhere been talked about in COP28. India has not been given the reparations for that, or countries like India have not been paid or even talked about for that matter. So now what can be the way forward? Have new indicators to measure climate change, because the present ones are not working for us. Have a good financial mechanism that can help the entire globe as a whole. Have binding commitments, have clarity on phase down of fossil fuels, and have a climate justice, common but differentiated responsibility. There is a common responsibility to cut down on global emissions of greenhouse gases, but the responsibility is not the same. USA and India, they do not have the same amount of responsibility, because USA releases, and not just now but in the past as well, it released a lot more carbon emissions than India ever did, and it continues to do so. So the responsibilities are common to protect the earth, to prevent global warming from happening, but these responsibilities are not the same. They are differentiated over countries, and they should be differentiated based upon how much global warming has been caused by which country, and money and assistance, technical assistance, should be given to the vulnerable countries or the countries impacted by climate change. So that's all for today. The question has been displayed again on the screen. Write the major highlights of steps taken at COP28 under the UN FCCC. Also discuss the concerns associated with the outcomes. You have 48 hours to write an answer to this question. You can definitely take the help of the discussion that has taken place here. The PDF for this discussion will be available tomorrow on our Telegram channel in the morning itself. You can get the link to Telegram channel in the description. So find the PDF there. Before that, watch the video again, get some understanding, read some more news articles if you want more understanding of this, and kindly share all the new points that you have added and whatever you've understood in your answers. Post your answers by Wednesday 5 p.m. and our team will evaluate them entirely free of cost for you. If you have any doubts, kindly let me know in the chat section. I will be happy to resolve them. If you want to book a strategy call with me or any of the faculty members, contact this number, or you can mail us your feedback or any doubt at this email ID. Kindly subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it. All right. Thank you, Rohit. Okay, I'm starting from beginning. Ronak, I think there is clarity around the advice for the static. You can book a strategy call, okay? Within an hour, ma'am, Saturday PDF is uploaded today morning. Ronak, the PDF would be uploaded the next day only. For let's say sessions that are held on Friday, I can give a request that they should be uploaded by Saturday, but they get uploaded on the next working day, so that can be worked about. But on the same day, it won't be possible. Purva, ma'am, we have study and mention all. No, Purva, you don't have to study all the conference of parties and you don't have to mention them. I have, I think, explained that. Just 1 and 2. Remember the COP21, that was the Paris Agreement, and the latest one. Thank you, Veenu, ma'am. No, Ronak, such a tough question will not be asked. Probably they'll ask you around 1 or 2 points that we have discussed here. So our aim at Perspective 360 degrees also to give you 360-degree coverage of the entire topic. That's why we discussed all the points. All right. And if there is any update to any of these points, for example, loss and damage fund, if you see that in objective part as well or in the subjective part, I think there is clarity around that. The full-fledged question asking you concerns, asking you the features, that will never be asked. This is the toughest question that can be, asked by any examination. Thank you, Rohit. Ma'am, is it possible to take a separate live session for how to write descriptive from you only so that we can write further more better? Sejal, kindly contact at this email ID for the same demand. Okay, so that can be planned. Kindly send that in written at hello@edutap.co.in, and probably we can conduct a live session on YouTube for that. All right, Nilesh, all the very best to you for your journey. I hope this was fruitful for you. You're welcome, Mayur. Happy to help. You're welcome, Purva. Okay, so no more doubts coming, no more messages coming. So let's call this a day. I will see you on Wednesday, 5 p.m. And I see a lot of you post the answer just before 5 p.m. before I start with the next video. See, don't take that approach in life. Don't, focus on the deadlines that I have to submit my answer before that. Focus on your work. I think the more disciplined and more responsible you are towards yourself, that keeps anxiety away. Secondly, it also increases your chances of success. It also puts you ahead in the race as compared to all others. So try to write by tomorrow 5 p.m. Even if you write in the last 1 minute, we will be checking your answers. But that is just one self-discipline habit that you can inculcate. All right, so I'll see you on Wednesday. Post your answers at the earliest. Take care and all the very best.